What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another future weather discussion on the Royal and Wire 54 channel. I hope you all are having a fantastic day whenever you guys are seeing this. I'd like to discuss the potential for a very different winter pattern than what we are anticipating. There are a few different factors that are contributing to this, particularly with the potential for severe weather this weekend, the main factor. So let's just get right into it. I hope this video won't be too long. I don't want it to be too long, but we'll see what happens. So, height anomalies here, you can see there are a bunch of blocking, there is a blocking high, really setting over British Columbia. This is the GFS, by the way. This is the newest GFS run that is actually still running. But if we take a look at this little low pressure meandering down in the Arc-La-Tex area, it's going to take off from Gulf moisture and excess energy that it's going to be able to get from the high plains. So, bearing that in mind, you're going to have energy feeding from both sides, which is going to favor strong storm development and which will eventually turn into a nor'easter. Going forward, you can see that there are a bunch of blocking highs, yet a strong troughing thing over here not currently, this is 60 hours out, over the Pacific Ocean. As time goes along, you see the lows kind of die out. Blocking highs come a lot stronger. So bearing this in mind, once the lows actually are able to come down and through, you're going to have some sort of problem. So if you take a look here, actually, I'm just going to go back here. You see a little bit of energy that just shoots down down through Alberta, down into the southern states, including Texas, and then what it does is it takes off towards the northeast. Sometimes it'll go like this, but sometimes it just feeds from the Gulf moisture it gets, and therefore, henceforth, you get a stronger storm. You get a storm with much more significant impacts than what you might expect initially. So that energy dips down, strengthens over Texas, and then breaks apart. Once again gets towards Dixie, feeds off the moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and then shoots out and away. Now, the track and uncertainty is still to be seen, so over the 60 GFS, if I come right over here, we'll see there's number 1, and number 2 just decides to become a blast-ass nor'easter. But if I actually go one more run back, you will see there's number 1, and here's number 2. What it does is it just feeds and strengthens to hell. This is an area for concern, because in particular, you're going to have the energy feeding off both of the oceans. My light just surged. You're going to have energy feeding off from both of the oceans, and you're going to have a strong jet with both of these storms. What this is going to mean is a severe potential over Dixie, as well as the potential for blizzard conditions over the Great Lakes Northeast, depending on the placement. If it's further east, if it's further over the ocean, not only will it be stronger, but it'll also induce blizzard potential further over into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Right now, with the current one, we're forecasting the potential for snowstorm/blizzard conditions over portions of Ontario, as well as the Great Lakes, and potentially even into the Northeast, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, etc. Great Lakes area. So, with this all being said, you have to factor in the idea that in combination with the moisture that's going to be surging from the Gulf and from the Atlantic, there's going to be sufficient PWatt, sufficient dews that are actually going to be able to help A, force, B, create severe thunderstorms. Now, today, there happens to be a slight risk for severe weather across portions of the East Coast and over the Panhandle of Florida. However, that is being clouded to hell right now, so that's another thing. If you have these kinds of setups, if you have clouds, then nothing's going to happen because there's clouds. But overall, we're talking about a pattern that favors lots of cutoff lows coming down through Alberta, down through the high plains, and then taking off through Dixie and up the coast, which would turn into nor'easters. This is very different than what we were initially seeing over the Farmer's Almanac, first of all. Second of all, just the overall pattern that the CFS, long-range models, stuff like that were all showing. It was showing a quite dry winter with the potential for severe weather here and there across the Midwest. Now, we could be talking about a very, very, very wet winter up and down the East Coast, Great Lakes, and maybe even into the Midwest with snow, thunderstorms, and a lot of rain, sleet, etc., just due to the temperature gradients that are going to be within those storms. Now, with this all being said, I'm going to switch over to the ConUS view here. What we have is this thing. This is inducing the severe threat through Dixie today. We can see that it actually does become some sort of nor'easter as it moves up through the East Coast, and feeding off the Gulf moisture, there does seem to be some sort of nice cold front outside of it. Now, it has induced a severe threat from the Carolinas. There is a slight risk tomorrow. In fact, I can just pull it up right here while I have a minute. There is a slight risk tomorrow for severe weather as you go up the coast. So you can see here the slight risk on Hatteras, the Outer Banks, marginal going up through Nantucket. We can see it is basically tornado-induced, so you have the 5% for tornadoes at the Carolinas, and the 2% extends all the way through the southern New England area. Wind risk extends through Florida. The tornado risk does not extend through Florida, but the wind risk extends through Florida for isolated cells that could be along the southern end of the front, and no hail threat, obviously. But it's setting up for the potential for severe weather up and down the coast. If isolated cells actually can form and they could move ashore, they could be rotating. So that's really the main concern here. So going forward, you have this that, I don't want to say bombs out, but strengthens to a 991 as it impacts, then does cyclogenesis over Quebec. You can see this little thing, 1018 over the plains, over the middle plains. And in particular, I've seen this on a few runs translate to a 999 in the middle of the Midwest. I don't see that happening. What that would end up bringing is a lot of rain to the eastern edges of the Great Lakes Midwest and snow up towards Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, possibly even Missouri. I don't see that happening. Their blocking highs are just going to shut any kind of energy flow down. But going forward, you can see something else forms. I don't really know. There's some sort of cold front that extends out, and there's something that starts to develop. But you can see this little area of moisture too. See, this is the thing of concern, because it showed, the GFS a few runs ago showed it actually moving up the coast as a fairly significant storm. So as you can see here, it ends up bombing over the Northeast. In particular, the majority of the Northeast and northern Mid-Atlantic could see severe impacts had that happen. Now, this is far out, but there is model run consistency from all of the runs, Canadian, Euro, GFS, etc., with this happening. And the area for concern here would be, of course, strong winds, heavy rainfall, potentially even for a brief spin-up, as well as blizzard conditions on the western end of the low pressure. But I'm just going to stick with the run right now. So basically what we're going to get at is this, and I will switch over from precip to temperatures to show lasting impacts. What we're getting is this: a lot stronger, a lot more wet of a winter pattern. We could favor a lot of nor'easters going up the coast, turning into rain, snow events for the Northeast, as well as a lot cooler temperatures over the majority of the high plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, even the Rockies. Because it's all going to translate to a lot of blocking highs over the Midwest. Sorry, not the Midwest, high plains. So I will come over here to show y'all the temperatures. So this is extending out, and it's supposed to bring a big blast of cold all the way down through the southeastern states. So areas like Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi. I'm not going to confuse those states again like I did last time. Granted, this is cold bias, but this is not out of realm whatsoever. So you can see upper 20s, very lower 30s, up through the Florida Panhandle even. So that passes through, and sets up a very cold and blustery about a week or so for the majority of the lower 48. Then you get further in to the into the winter, and it starts to get pretty serious. Granted, yes, the GFS is cold biased, but what I'm trying to get at here is this is not out of realm considering the trends we're seeing. So you can see this big cold front that extends temperatures of negative teens through Minnesota. So I'm seeing right there negative 12. So you have to factor in maybe a 5-10 degree difference because of the GFS. That's still negative. That's still negative temperatures. That is going to be a big concern for areas up in the high plains if this can verify, and I see it possible. So the cold temperatures extend through the country, most of the country, once again, except for the Rockies, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But the main concern here would end up being these cold temperatures, these cold blasts. What could they mean for, number one, the rest of the pattern? Because this is what we're going to be transitioning to for at least the month or two. Then not to mention, you have to also factor in the potential for severe weather up and down the coast. So what kind of pattern does this induce? How stormy, how cold, how maybe even warm in some places up down by Florida. I just said up down twice. I'm very good at this. Down by Florida. What kind of pattern does it induce? And we'll get more information with that as these frontal systems end up passing. Now, for the latter half of the video here, I want to turn to short range. I'm going to use the HRRR here just to give a decent idea of what could be going on in terms of impacts up and down the coast. So, do I have to reload the page? Yes, I do. So, in terms of what we could be expecting up and down the coast from this, obviously, the threat for rainfall going up and down and around all over the portions of the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. Lots of rainfall. Going to be a issue especially for areas like the Carolinas who are already decently saturated from everything else this year. It's going to be a bit of a concern. As it moves up, you can see there are actually a couple fronts here. So you can see this one cold front extending south through the pressure gradient. And then as time goes along, there are also a few other storm lines that start to develop over the waters. Now, granted, this is where the tor threat for the Outer Banks comes from for tomorrow. But there is some sort of front that seems to be extending south of the pressure gradient, and that is likely why there is some sort of severe threat for the New York City metropolitan area tomorrow. That does not mean I agree with it to any extent, but there is definitely the threat for some damaging winds and potentially a tornado or two as these storms pass due to the low pressure. They might start to weakly rotate, and one of the stronger ones could end up being able to produce a tornado. Take a look at dew points here. You can see very dry right now up and down the Midwest, Great Lakes through the Northeast. You can see in the south, you have those dew points that will go up with time. So as you can see, as it goes up the East Coast, dew points almost reaching 70 along Hatteras and that coastline. And as they continue to go up through New Jersey, you can see dew points even in the 60s, which could be conducive for a potential very small severe threat. But it's hard to say as of now. And then as it goes further away, the dews will end up weakening, just due to the environmental conditions going up through the Northeast. In terms of wind, because I brought up wind as a main threat here, let's just take a look at what we could be expecting sustained. So as you can see on the back end of the low pressure, it is very strong, but even going across the water, Hatteras will likely be seeing sustained winds up to 30 at the very least. And then as you take into account the storm system moving up into the northeast, Long Island is going to get battered. At least 30 sustained. Gusts are going to be significantly higher. But as you can see through most of New Jersey, southern Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Nantucket is gone. But as you can see with that, pretty gusty winds throughout most of the day. On Monday, you could expect anywhere from 20 to 25 miles per hour sustained, and I will show you all wind gusts right now. The wind gusts could be significantly higher. Now, this all depends on placement, and I've seen several runs in which these strong winds have showed up over New Jersey. I've seen a bunch of runs, and it's just shifting east. So the stronger winds are going to be a little bit further east, evidently. But you can still see through the New York State metropolitan area, gusts hitting 50, and then as you head out to the further extensive Long Island, Jesus, gusts of 73 is what this is saying. Of course, the areas of southern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut are also going to be getting it just because they're on water. So the wind potential increases because there's no interference with the surface. But in particular, you're going to be seeing some very gusty winds up through southern New England area, which could go anywhere from the Delmarva up through the Massachusetts, Rhode Island, southern Connecticut area. Threat for damaging winds will increase with time as the storm system gets closer, and as it moves off, it will continue to strengthen, in theory, posing a little bit more of a damaging wind gust as time goes along. That's going to wrap it up here. I just wanted to do basic outline of this, as there's still too much uncertainty with it going out as far as it is. It is fairly short term, but I'm talking about with maybe next weekend, there's still a lot of uncertainty. So I'll make a follow-up video midweek about the potential for maybe even, it depends. If it ends up stopping, if it ends up not showing up on long-range runs, I won't have a video to make about it. But if it does, of course, I will continue to keep you guys updated. That's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for tuning into this future weather discussion. If you guys did enjoy this, please be sure to leave a like rating down below. Also, hit the subscribe button if you guys are new around here, and click the notification bell if you guys want to be notified every time I go live. That'll do it for me. I'll see you guys in the next severe weather coverage video, live stream, or discussion. Take care. Peace out.